3 idiomas, pero no todos a la vegada. Hoy intentaré hablar en 3 idiomas, but not todos a la vez. Today I'm going to try and speak in 3 languages, but not all at the same time. Benvinguts i benvingudes als Premis DAU Barcelona, establerts per l'Ajuntament de Barcelona per reconèixer els millors autors i autores i els més apassionants experts del món del joc. Esta es la 9ª entrega de los Premios DAU Barcelona, que son cada vez más prestigiosos y cada vez más internacionales. Ya van 9 veces que celebramos unos premios dedicados al juego y en especial a los juegos de mesa. Són 9 entregues dels Premis DAU Barcelona, però 10 festivals. Aquest és el DAU 10. Des del 2012 que no hem parat de jugar. Des de 2012 que l'Ajuntament de Barcelona proposa a les famílies de la ciutat que incorporin el joc a la seva vida de cada dia i que ofereix als jugadors avesats un espai de trobada per conèixer novetats. Sobretot, des del 2012, que l'Ajuntament dona suport a uns creadors i creadores sovint desconeguts, per començar jo no en conec ni un, i la indústria dels jocs de taula. Comencem al principi. Ara, just fa un any, aquesta gala la fèiem gravada prèviament al Parc Güell. Va estar bé, però és millor aquí en directe. Si us plau, un aplaudiment per als organitzadors i organitzadores, un aplauso para los organizadores, a round of applause for the organisers, que els ha costat molt arribar fins aquí. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Some people might think that games are just for kids, but you can play at any age, even mine, and it'll help you forget your daily routines, enter different worlds, and find a different kind of connection with other people. In short, playing games makes us feel freer and even more social than we often are. Jugar és de les millors activitats que podem fer plegats i prou que ens ho ha recordat la pandèmia, que ens ha fet estar tant de temps a casa. Jugar és imaginació, somni, seducció, col·laboració, negociació, rialles, decisions fàcils i difícils, emocions i de vegades uns rampells de molt mal humor quan perdem una partida. Gràcies a l'esforç de l'Ajuntament i de l'organització del DAU Barcelona podrem seguir jugant, en el meu cas, començar a jugar, perquè normalment no jugo mai. En fi, enguany el DAU torna al nostre estimat Fabri Coats amb tots els DAUs, el Gran DAU, el DAUet, el DAU històric i el DAU tradicional, i amb 2 DAUs més, el DAU històric i el DAU dels autors i els DAUs de rol. En comptes d'explicar-vos-ho ara, només cal que aneu demà a Fabri Coats per descobrir de què va tot plegat. Como cada año, además, el DAU se mete en las escuelas y viaja a todos los distritos de Barcelona, porque creemos que el juego debe estar en todas partes. Ja em puc treure aquest con de cas, que em fa una vergonya increïble. Ja està. Mientras para en el escenario, mirad qué dicen del DAO algunos de los amigos que hemos ido haciendo año tras año. 3 mensajes, 2 desde Madrid y otro desde París.
Hola amigos de DAO, soy José Manuel, responsable de Almodén España. Un rápido mensaje para felicitar a DAO por su 10º aniversario. Enhorabuena, estamos muy orgullosos de haber formado parte de DAO desde su primera edición y esperamos que dure siempre. Un especial abrazo para Oriol, el principal responsable de la existencia de este evento en este año tan especial también para él. Espero que nos podamos ver pronto, pásenlo bien en DAU i sigan jugando sempre.
Hola, què tal? Jo sóc el Pepe Pedrat i volia felicitar a tota l'organització del DAU per el seu aniversari. Moltes felicitats a totes i a tots i moltes gràcies per la vostra feina. Connectar els jocs de taula i els jocs de rol amb la societat fa una societat millor. Moltes gràcies i moltes felicitats.
Bon anniversaire DAU Barcelona. 10 ans. 10 ans de jeux sur toutes ses formes, jeux de rôle, jeux de plateau, jeux de cartes. 10 ans de bonheur. On espère se retrouver encore dans 10 ans et d'ici là, j'espère en récolter un deuxième. Ciao et bon anniversaire.
The best way to celebrate the 10th anniversary of DAU Barcelona is with a friend of the festival from day one, a person who knows it very well and who loves it very much. With all of you, Tom Werneck, please. Mentre el Tom puja a l'escenari, informació de servei pels que no parlen anglès. Avui heu rebut un missatge de correu que us ha enviat DAU Barcelona. A dins hi teniu un enllaç a la web DAU Gala de Premis i la traducció al català i castellà dels parlaments que es faran avui i aquí. Todos ustedes han recibido un mensaje hoy con un enlace con la traducción de todos los discursos que oirán hoy. Lo deben tener en su móvil. Les dejo un momento para que busquen. Si quieren ver el discurso en catalán, es el número 1 y en castellano el número 2. Tom, welcome to the show, I suppose you would call it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly 4 weeks ago, I was at the game fair in Essen. Now I'm finally back at the DAU. What a difference. The difference is in the basic outlook and mindset of the people who organize these two gaming events. I may reduce it to a simple, perhaps overstated denominator. The purpose of Essen is to make money by renting booth space. The purpose of the DAO is to get people to play games. This manifests itself in the structures. Essen takes place in a professional exhibition center with large, clearly laid out halls. Of course there are games, but most of them are not provided by the organizer, but are part of the areas rented by the game publishers. And here in Barcelona, Fabra y Coats is winding, has stairs and small rooms, and is almost admirably unprofessional. But games are played, inside and outside, everywhere, in every conceivable way. They are wonderful, exciting current board games, but also historical games, miniature games, traditional games, role-playing games. This was not the case from the beginning, by the way, but it shows the clever adaptability of the organizer who expand the concept of games as far as possible and give room to every kind of playful activity. And you can see that not only in Fabra y Coats, but in the whole city. Unbelievable what you will find there. Every form of play, from juggling to theater, from chess tournaments to clowns, from magical soap bubbles to jumping rope. There is not just a bit of play, but Barcelona plays. And even where you don't see at the first glance, play has its place and its meaning. For example, when teachers are intensively trained to use the possibilities and potential of play in the classroom, so that children learn with playful enthusiasm instead of having to work through dry material. From the very beginning, I have followed the development of DAO closely and with great pleasure. I was very impressed by the professional quality. At the time, I gave a lecture on the importance of gaming events for the end consumer and the influence that prizes and awards have on development. But listening to clever analysis is one thing. It's another to implement the good ideas and suggestions with energy and drive. I remember the beginnings well. Not only well-known manufacturers such as De Vere, but above all, the decision makers of the municipalité, especially the clever heads of the Institut de Cultura de Barcelona. Welcome, Monica, Matteo. At that time, wanted to know exactly what effects a large games event would have, which, unlike the Spielwarenmesse in Nuremberg, was not aimed to the whole sale trade, but exclusively at the players. These people also wanted to know exactly what effects prizes and awards have. Success is always a function of good preparation and planning. It was only after thorough information had been gathered that the city of Barcelona, represented by the Institut de Cultura, launched entrepreneurial activities to develop the game into a cultural field of the future. I just mentioned prizes and awards. Have you noticed the elegant combination of cleverness and play with which the award winners are selected? It's not a gray-haired jury sitting there brooding, but it's always the previous award winners who make the selection. That's clever, because no one likes to find themselves in a list with weaker candidates. Rather, they should be even better, even more successful, even more capable, so that one can also bask on their glory. And with this trick, the organizers have also gotten rid of the problem of having to make a selection or install a jury. That's what I call a game within a game. Let me come back to the people of the Institut de Cultura. They showed at that time that they not only wanted to manage files, preserve precious manuscripts, and safeguard contemporary documents, but also to shape and influence a cultural development of the future. The first DAO had an impressive 3,500 visitors. Impressive? Because just before Christmas, no one actually has time to play, but is busy in preparations. Impressive also that so many people took the long way to the Faber-Ecots. Anyone who talks to me about the DAO in Germany can only ever hear enthusiasm from me. This year, we are celebrating a proud anniversary. 10 years of DAO, and the numbers of visitors has increased almost tenfold by DAO 2019. If that's not a success story, everything has grown. The number of game tables, the breadth of the offer, the participating game publishers. I don't want to back up with long figures now. We only have to look around at the Faber-Ecots and into the city to see how lively and widespread the culture of game has become here. And let us not forget the academic efforts giving additional value to the world of games. The major game manufacturers, such as Ravensburger, Schmidt, Cosmos, or Haber, are following the promising growth rates of the Spanish market with great interest. A lot is happening here. An important future market is growing. And what's even more important is it is not just about a market where you can sell games, but about a culture that already has very concrete companies. Where there's a lot of gaming, more and more people are thinking about realizing their own ideas and inventing games themselves. We've been seeing a lively, creative community of game inventors for quite some time now. I have a nice example for this. Just a few days ago, Cosmos in Germany presented Red Cathedral, a really challenging, complex game by Gil Santos and Israel Centrero. The two live in Madrid. At the beginning, I spoke about the initial steps of the DAO. At the very beginning, there was a man who had a vision. He believed that the big event for gamers should not be limited to places like Essen, Munich, or Cannes. Oriol Comas y Comas provided the initial spark. He is the father of the DAO. Thank you, Oriol. Oriol, if you hadn't moved so many things, we wouldn't all be sitting here now, and Barcelona would be poorer by a great enrichment. 10 years of DAO. I wish Barcelona, the Institute of Cultura, but above all, the players, that the DAO continues to develop in the future as dynamically and lively as before. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was fascinating. That was fascinating. Great. Empezamos con la entrega de los Premios DAU Barcelona 2022, con un premio que curiosamente no es DAO. Desde hace años, ISPA, la Asociación Española de Editoriales de Juegos de Mesa, apoya el Festival DAO y lo ha elegido para otorgar el premio ISPA al mejor juego de un autor u autora español, editado y producido en el Estado español. El jurado está formado por 3 personas, ninguna de aquí, para que no puedan tener influencias de ningún tipo. Fred Coleman, neerlandès, organitzador del festival Zouderspel a la ciutat de Veldhoven, als Països Baixos. Etienne Espreman, belga, autor i editor de Geek Attitude Games. Més d'un el recordarà perquè el 2013 va guanyar el Premi DAU Barcelona al millor autor novell. Cédric Lefebvre, francès, autor i editor de Ludonaut. Precisament, l'Etienne Espreman ens ha enviat un missatge sobre els jocs produïts a Espanya. Para el mensaje de Etienne pueden ver la traducción en la web de DAO Gala de Premis en su teléfono móvil, otra vez. En este caso, el catalán es el número 3 y el castellano es el número 4.
Hola everybody, I'm Etienne Espreman from Geek Attitude Games. I'm also one of the winners of the DAO Festival. It was with my game Brussels 1893. This one, if you know it. In 2013, I guess. Time goes by. So I'd like to say good luck to everybody for the contest of this year. And I also want to say that Spanish board games have evolved strongly this last years in quality and quantity. There are a lot of designers and publishers making a great job. We at Geek Institute Games have been working with GDM for several years, and we are very proud of it. I know that Spanish board games are more and more appreciated all around the world, and that's a good thing. So, I wish you a good fair. I'm not here this year. I'd like to, but I've been there twice already, and I hope to come back next time. Have fun, and please, keep making good games. Adeo, amics.
Doncs Etienne, Fred i Cédric s'han encarregat de triar el millor entre 4 bons jocs, que són aquests. Cakes, de Juan Carlos Rius, Atomo Games. Frankie, de Anna Lucchini i Pau Moré, GDM Games. Lapsus, Eugeni Castaño, Do It Games. Red Cathedral, Shea Santos i Isra Cendrero, de Devir. Els 6 autors i autores els tenim aquí. Deuen estar una mica nerviosos i nervioses. Deuen estar algú nerviosos. They're probably just a little bit nervous. Doncs bé, Santi Esteban, autor i editor del joc Virus, que ha venut 1 milió d'exemplars i membre de la junta directiva d'ISPA, ens dirà qui és el millor autor de jocs d'edició original espanyola del 2021. Santi, quan vulguis. Cuando quieres. Aquí.
No tengo ningún papel ni nada. Bueno, yo lo sé, digo, a lo mejor ahí voy a hacer el paripé.
Solo tienes que decir el nombre.
Vale. Desde ISPA solamente decir que, bueno, sabéis que trabajamos en muchos ámbitos, pero el principal y el más importante es reivindicar una cosa que consideramos muy importante. El juego es cultura. ¿Vale? Bueno, y el ganador del premio es Frankie, de GDM.
Vale. Ahora ya solo hay 4 autores y autoras nerviosos por no haber ganado y un autor y una autora aún más nerviosos porque sí han ganado. Bien, una pareja de autores y un editor, porque el juego Frankie ha sido editado por GDM Games con una producción exquisita. I com podeu veure, da el premio Santi Esteban. Bé, si voleu anar cap al micro.
Mare meva!
Anna i Pau, sé que viviu a Sant Pere de Vilamajor, que és un lloc que conec una mica i bastant bé, que està un lloc molt bé. És per això que viviu allà, que feu jocs que són realment tan diferents del tot. I ho dic perquè m'han dit que aquest joc va de cosir. De cosir. Això, podeu explicar com collons heu fet un joc amb cosir?
Ara t'expliquem. D'entrada és al·lucinant, això. Primer volia, abans de res, deixa'm dir una cosa, perquè si no me n'oblidaré, que és, us vull donar les gràcies a tots els creadors i creadores, perquè si el Pau i jo fem jocs és perquè a nosaltres ens agrada jugar i sense que vosaltres creeu jocs nosaltres no podríem fer res, això està clar. I bé, contestarem. Aquest joc va ser una idea, tornant del Festival de Canes, anàvem amb el cotxe i van fer una entrevista, digue-ho tu.
Sí, vam fer una entrevista
a l'Almudena Grandes.
Almudena Grandes, del seu llibre La madre de Frankenstein, i vam dir, coi, si fem un joc de Frankenstein, que hagis de cosir.
Clar, el Frankenstein està cosit, doncs haurà de ser de cosir.
I el que has de fer és cosir els braços, cosir les cames, amb uns patrons que et donen,
i a
I amb un
cosir.
fil ens vas cosint.
Home, si es tracta de Frankenstein ja és una altra cosa.
Sí.
Moltíssimes gràcies per tot.
Ah, i els jocs són cultura.
Merci. Bé, ara sí, toca saber qui s'endú el primer Premi DAU Barcelona 2021. Comencem pels més joves. Tinc aquí el guió per la canalla dels jocs de taula. Canalla en català vol dir nens, diguem. Els que segurament ja jugaven al Catan, quan jo ja no sabia encara no sabia que el Catan existia. Es tracta del premi a la millor autoria novella, el jovent dels creadors de jocs de taula. Aquest premi el donem a algú que ha publicat el seu primer joc des del darrer Festival DAU. Hemos encargado la elección del premio a algunos y algunas de los mejores blogueros, youtubers, instagramers y tuiteros especializados en juegos del Estado español. Son estos: Andrés Delgado y Lorena Torres de Jugando en Pareja, Lorena Garcés de Consolo y Tablero, Fran Gómez de Cubo Magazine, Marcel Lucas de Free the Meeple, David Pérez de El Club Dante, Javi Rodríguez de Michigec. I és precisament el Marcel Lucas del canal Instagram Free the Meeple qui ens anunciarà el nom del guanyador. Marcel, si vols venir cap aquí. Gràcies. Ja ens diràs qui ha estat.
Sí, bé, abans de començar em sumo a la reivindicació de que els jocs són cultura. I res, és un plaer per mi presentar aquest premi en nom d'aquest gran jurat del que un any més tinc l'honor de formar part. Aquest any la decisió no ha estat gens fàcil, hi havia moltes candidatures molt potents i de fet fins a 9 jocs diferents han obtingut algun vot del jurat. Però finalment hem decidit donar el premi als autors d'un joc que han aconseguit presentar mecàniques ja conegudes, ja consolidades, però d'una manera nova, original i molt elegant. Un joc que ha demostrat un nivell de maduresa a nivell de disseny inusual per ser un primer joc i que per aquestes i altres característiques ha sigut un èxit a taules d'arreu del món. És per això que el Premi DAU a la millor autoria novell d'aquest any és per Elwen i Min, autor i autora de Les ruïnes perdudes d'Arnak.
Gràcies. Ja està. Moltes gràcies, Marcel. Doncs dona el premi Carles Sala, coordinador de la fàbrica de creació Fabricoats, i Carles i Elwen and Min, anava a dir pugeu a l'escala, you're already on the stage, that's fantastic. Yes. So, the award, right. The award goes to Carles. Okay, so we've got 2 authors who should be feeling more or less happy this evening. Elwen and Min, you're from the Czech Republic. It looks as if your game is really very much appreciated in lots of different countries. Here, your game of Ruins of Arnak has been published here by De Veer with the name Las Ruinas Perdidas de Arnak, and I've been told that it's really highly recommendable. How do you feel about the fact that this is your first published game and you've already won a prize? To the microphone, please.
It's quite incredible. We never expected such success, and it feels like a dream, to be honest.
I think for every first-time designer, the biggest dream is to publish the first game. And with that, we were kind of like super happy, and we didn't expect anything else. And just seeing how many people actually enjoy the game, it makes us so much happy. And thank you so much for the award and the appreciation. This is just a great feeling for us.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. That was great. Congratulations, by the way. Congratulations. Fantastic. Ara ja toca conèixer el millor autor o autora d'aquest any. Els encarregats d'escollir el guanyador o guanyadora són els guanyadors dels 3 últims anys, tant del Premi a millor autor com del Premi a millor autor novell. Os haré esperar un poco con más vídeos de gente que quiere felicitar el DAO por sus 10 años. Un mensaje desde Washington, otro desde el barrio de Horta de Barcelona y el tercero desde un rincón de la Bretaña francesa.
Hi, my name is Jason Matthews, and I would like to congratulate my friends at DAO Barcelona on their 10th anniversary event. I had the opportunity to attend the festival in 2014, and it really was something very special. Gaming communities all across the world would be lucky to have the kind of event that Oriol and the gamers of Catalonia have created. I know that this is only the first of many important anniversaries to come. I hope that everyone has an amazing time, and I look forward to the opportunity to join you again for more gaming. Dervateshta!
Deu! Tira el dau. Roll the dice, tira el dado, lance LD, tira I dadi, Burfen, lance os dados, brosit costi, da Kulzaru, en un momento dado, per molts anys. Visca el DAO!
Joyeux anniversaire au DAO Barcelona et que la force soit avec vous.
Ok, el jurat del Premi DAU Barcelona, el millor autor 2021, està format per Wolfgang Wask, que va ser el millor autor del 2018. De fet, els tenim aquí, sortiré una mica del d'allò. Eloi Pujades i Joaquim Vilalta, millors autors novells, també del 2018. Phil Walker Harding, millor autor 2019. Elizabeth Hargrave, millor autora novella, també del 2019, Thomas Singh, millor autor 2020, i Ondra Scupi, millor autor novell del 2020. És un plaer que sigui precisament un autor tan estimat com Thomas Singh, l'autor de La Tripulació, que en nom del jurat del Premi al millor autor de 2021 ens digui qui han proposat i per què. So, Thomas, it's all yours. Recuerden, la traducción de Thomas Singh la tienen en la web, que es el móvil. Esta traducción es el 5 en catalán y el 6 en castellano.
Lieber Johannes, du hast den DAU Barcelona Award für den besten Autor 2021 erhalten. Und ich, Thomas Singh, habe die Ehre, für dich eine kleine Rede halten zu dürfen. Im Namen von Elizabeth Hargrave, Phil Walker Harding, Joaquim Vilalta, Eloi Pujadas, Ondra Scupi und Wolfgang Wasch gratuliere ich dir zu diesem Preis recht herzlich. Und mit diesen Namen ist eine ganze Menge an Bedeutung zusammengekommen, denn diese Namen waren die Gewinner der letzten Jahre. Aber dieses Jahr, lieber Johannes, haben wir für dich gewotet. Du hast es mit dem Spiel Micro Macro geschafft, ganz viele Spieler abzuholen und zu begeistern. Und dieses Spiel ist so einfach gehalten und birgt dennoch eine ganze Menge an Innovation in sich. Und das ist durchaus eine Kunst. Und von daher hast du diesen Preis dieses Jahr wirklich verdient. Nochmals Gratulation von unserer Seite. Ich will jetzt die Rede aber doch noch nicht beenden, ohne zuvor nochmals ganz kurz den Machern dieses Events gedankt zu haben. Denn ich glaube, selten waren Menschen, die mit viel Leidenschaft und Engagement das Thema Spiel und Kunst, und beide überschneiden sich ja durchaus, selten waren diese Menschen wichtiger als heutzutage. Von daher nochmals mein ganzer Dank an alle, die dieses Event in irgendeiner Form begleitet haben. Vielen Dank. Dann wünsche ich euch in Barcelona noch ein ganz tolles Fest und viel Spaß heute. Ciao.
Qui donarà el premi és Josep Vives, el director general de Promoció Biblioteques de la Generalitat de Catalunya. Si vol pujar a l'escenari, sisplau. I, evidentment, Johannes Sieg, if you could come to the stage, please. Thank you very much. Perfect. That's the award. Okay, congratulations. De nada. 2021 is turning out to be a great year for him because Micro Macro has won a whole load of prizes, if I'm not mistaken. This game is the second one you've created, just the second one you've created. In fact, before you were widely known as an illustrator. That's correct, right? And because you won the Spiel des Jahres award, that's because you're now here. Is your game as different as people say it is? Sorry, the microphone's just over there.
Yeah, I think so. It's very different, but I don't know. It's very easy, I guess, and still we try to get some deepness into it.
Okay.
I think it's
it's original.
It's a difficult question.
Okay, all right. It's easy, but it's very different. It sounds like my kind of game.
Yeah,
actually.
just try it, just play it. It's
great. Okay, yeah. Johannes and Josep, thank you very much indeed.
Preparé todo el día. Buenas noches, es un gran honor de estar aquí y me alegro mucho de recibir este premio. Tomo este premio a nombre de nuestro equipo Hardball Games porque Micro Macro fue solo posible en colaboración de nuestro equipo y en colaboración de nuestro editorial, Edición Spielwiese. Todos aún estamos sorprendidos y muy contentos por el éxito de nuestro juego. También muchas gracias a los jugadores de España, sobre todo a los jugadores catalanes y muchas gracias a los organizadores del festival. Es un gran honor de estar aquí en este gran evento. Y también muchas gracias a nuestros representantes de editorial en España, que es SD Games. Muchas gracias. Merci.
Thank you. Al 2019, por primera vez, los Premis DAU Barcelona otorgaron un nuevo premio, un reconocimiento póstumo a personalidades históricas que han contribuido significativamente a la difusión y desarrollo del juego y específicamente de los juegos de mesa a lo largo de los siglos. Varios ganadores del premio especial DAU Barcelona a una vida dedicada al juego presentaron los primeros huéspedes de este peculiar Hall of Fame. Alfonso X el Sabio, el rey que mandó escribir una enciclopedia de los juegos de mesa de finales del siglo XIII. Estan sortint aquí un altre cop. Passo a un costat. Lizzie McGee, la verdadera creadora del juego que luego fue copiado como Monopoly. Stuart Cullen, el antropólogo que lo escribió casi todo sobre los juegos de diferentes culturas. Gerolamo Cardano, el estudioso renacentista del concepto de la aleatoriedad. A los que se sumó Johann Huizinga, autor de Homo Ludens, el libro publicado en 1938, que afirma que el juego es un ingrediente esencial en la generación de la cultura. De fet, el que molta gent ha estat dient avui. Todos nosotros deberíamos tenerlo en la mesita de noche e irlo leyendo cada día un poco. Enguany presentem la nova personalitat del Saló del Prestigi, el filòsof i historiador cultural francès Roger Caillois, que va estudiar i millorar l'obra de Johann Huizinga. El seu llibre, Léger les hommes, mereix estar al costat del de Huizinga. Once again, Tom Wernick, I'm going to ask you to come back onto the stage to introduce Roger Caillois. Recuerden, la traducción en su teléfono móvil. El número de este discurso es el 7 para el texto en catalán y el 8 para el texto en castellano. Welcome back. You're very welcome.
Roger Caillois, Les jeux et les hommes, le masque et le vertige. Caillois' remarkable and groundbreaking study of play was published in 1961. Although he repeatedly emphasized the fundamental definition by the Dutch historian Johann Huizinga, his foreword began with a critique of the latter's book, Homo Ludens, which was published in 1938. According to Caillois, Huizinga primarily examined the external structures of play, thereby ignoring the internal motivations that give every behavior its real meaning. And he believed that Huizinga's theory that play is a necessary, albeit sometimes insufficient, condition for the development of any culture was too narrow and the emphasis on playful competition too one-sided. Therefore, Caillois applied intellectual rigor to set about rearranging the elements of play and defined 4 categories for these, distinguishing between the secular and the sacred. Agon. In playful competition, players put their specific skills to the test, such as their strengths, intelligence, or memory. The example, chess. Alea. When gambling, however, players are at the mercy of external forces, such as fate or chance. Example, roulette. Mimicry or mascara. Players assume the role of fictional characters and behave accordingly. Example, roleplay. Elinks, thrill-seeking through heightened perception. The stronger the emotions are, such as panic, fear, or ecstasy, the greater the pleasure. Example, the roller coaster. However, Caillois didn't consider these 4 categories in isolation, but usually as combination thereof. He regarded poker, for example, as a combination of agon, alea, and mimicry, because it includes a mixture of the cards played or held in the people's hand, the random distribution of the cards, and bluffing. Caillois placed these 4 basic elements within a clever framework using the polarity of paideia and ludus. He described paideia as uncontrolled fantasy and spontaneous improvisation, as experienced at festivals or concerts. On the contrary, ludus restricts play. Clear rules, determined at the start of the game, require thought, patience, and a clever strategy, as with Go or Shogi. All play can be classified within these frameworks, provided that 6 other basic principles are observed. First, it is voluntary. Second, it is detached from everyday life, occupying its own time and space. Third, the result cannot be determined in advance, but is influenced by the players. Fourth, it is unproductive and creates no additional economic value. Fifth, players observe rules that deviate from those of everyday life, as well as from routine behaviors. And sixth, last but not least, it involves unrealistic imaginary worlds. Although Kailua repeatedly emphasized Huizinga's brilliance and depth of thought, he was also critical. So his remarkable ideas and definitions did not go unchallenged, but this does not diminish their importance. Individual areas of game research are now so highly developed that they form the basic of far-reaching decisions in many scientific disciplines: social, economic, medical, meteorological, climate research, and political decisions, to name just a few examples, are no longer conceivable without mathematical principles of game theory. Nevertheless, there are still wider gaps in our knowledge of play than in almost any other scientific field. Any new research strategy must be based on solid foundations. Roger Caillois's cultural and philosophical approach created an essential cornerstone for these foundations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you, that was great. We've already given the ISPA Award for the best author of a game produced in Spain, the award also for the best new author, the award for the best author, a new person in the DAU Barcelona's Hall of Fame, and we're going to finish with an award for the wisest person, a special award called A Life Dedicated to Games. Abans, però, escoltem tres amics més que volen felicitar DAU Barcelona pel seu aniversari des de Venècia, des de Barcelona i des de Gloucester, a la vora de Boston.
Ciao a tutti, sono Leo Corvini da Venezia. Volevo salutare gli amici di DAU Barcellona e augurargli uno splendido anniversario. Ricordo che sono stato loro ospite qualche anno fa, è stata una bellissima esperienza, la fiera è organizzata benissimo e l'accoglienza e l'ospitalità sono stati calienti come ci si aspetta dagli amici catalani. Buon divertimento a tutti.
10 anys del DAU, de ser un projecte a convertir-se en una fira de jocs referent a tot el món. Felicitats.
Greetings from Phil Orbanes in the U.S. I wish I could be in beautiful Barcelona to deliver these words, but I will say from afar, congratulations to our DAU Festival upon the occasion of its 10th wonderful anniversary, and my best wishes to everyone, especially this year's winners.
Els guanyadors d'aquesta categoria, o sigui, el Life Dedicated to Games, en ordre cronològic han estat l'editor de Ravensburger, Erwin Glonacher, l'historiador Jean-Marie Lot, el fundador de l'Espiel des Jahres, Tom Wernick, el llegendari autor de La llebre i la tortuga, l'erudit David Pallet, l'autor de més de 50 jocs i més de 20 llibres, Dan Glimner, el conservador d'antiguitats al Museu Britànic i especialista en jocs de l'antiguitat, Irving Finkel, el primer especialista mundial en el Monopoly, Philip Orbanes, l'autoritat mundial en la història dels jocs de cartes, Thierry de Paulís. Precisamente, Philip Orbanes y Thierry de Paulís, como ganadores de los 2 últimos años, han propuesto el nombre del siguiente ganador y el Instituto de Cultura de Barcelona lo ha aceptado con agrado. Nos lo dice el propio Thierry de Paulís. Último aviso, las traducciones, etcétera, de los discursos están en sus teléfonos móviles. Thierry, if you'd like to come to the stage, please. Thank you.
c'est très logique.
Sorry. Sorry, I can't speak Catalan. It's my great regret. And my Spanish is not very good. So we had, with Philip Orbanes, the task to nominate a successor. 2 months ago, Oriol Comas gave us Philip, winner of the 2019 award, and myself the order to select who would succeed us. This is an absolute rule of the Festival DAU Barcelona, that the last 2 winners of the special award, a life devoted to games or dedicated to games, have to choose the next winner. A few hours later, I received a message from Phil. Instead of a long list of candidates, his suggestion was about one name, an obvious one, so obvious that I was sure he had already received the prize. But Oriol told me he hadn't. So Phil's choice became mine immediately. Great minds think alike. I have the immense pleasure to introduce our colleague and friend and new A Life Dedicated to Games special award recipient, Bruce Whitehill, who is just in front of me. Now, like in the Académie Française, when we receive a new academician, I have to say what Bruce's life was. Bruce is considered to be one of the foremost authorities on American games and their history. Born in New York in 1946, Bruce grew up on Long Island. He started doing research on a few games he loved, like Scrabble, in the late 1970s, and then began collecting in the early 1980s. After graduating in psychology at Washington University in St. Louis, then at San Francisco State University, he was hired as product developer for the famous firm Milton Bradley, also known as MB, in Springfield, Massachusetts. He worked there from 1982 to 1984, and then decided to become independent, working as a freelance writer and game inventor, as well as a consultant to the toy and game industry. In doing so, Bruce became the big game hunter, a pun that is understandable only in English. In 1985, Bruce Whitehill founded the American Game Collectors Association, AGCA, whose name was changed to the Association for Games and Puzzles International in 1999 to better reflect the broadened scope of its mission and its international nature. He also wrote many articles for various magazines dealing with games and was a senior editor of Games and Games Annual, as well as Knucklebones for a short time, to name just a few. He wrote a chapter on the game of careers in the book Family Games, the 100 Best, edited by James Loader at Green Gronin Publishing, and writes periodically for the German magazine Spielbox. As a historian, Bruce's achievements are remarkable, and it's a historian who tells you. His book, Games, American Games and Their Makers, 1822-1992, published by Chilton Books in 1992, is the most authoritative work on the history of American games and game companies. From 1999, Bruce Whitehill participated in the annual Board Game Studies Colloquia, international conferences for the study of board games, and presented important papers, including American Games, A Historical Perspective, published in Board Game Studies Journal 2, 1999, and Halma and Chinese checkers, origins and variations in step-by-step, the proceedings of the 2001 colloquium at Fribourg, Switzerland. In May 2004, Bruce was the organizer of the 7th Board Game Studies Colloquium, which was held in Philadelphia in the United States. In the same year, Bruce collaborated with the Swiss Museum of Games, Musée Suisse du Jeu, in La Tour de Paix, between Vevey and Montreux, for an exhibition using games from his collection. To accompany the exhibition, he wrote a book published in 3 languages, French, English, and German, entitled Americanopoly, l'Amérique au travers de ses jeux, America seen through its games, Amerika im Spiegel seiner Spiele. Around the same time, the re-election of President George W. Bush, a candidate who was not Bruce's ideal president, to say the least, encouraged him to relocate to Europe, and in particular in Germany, where he had found love. In 2007, he married Sibylle, who is not only his wife, but also a competent collaborator as well as a collector, historian, and serious player in her own right. They are now living in Eickeloh, a small village in the Lower Saxony countryside, not far from Hanover. In 2007, Bruce contributed a chapter for their important book in French with the German version, Jeux de l'humanité, 5000 ans d'histoire culturelle des jeux de société, published by the Swiss Museum of Games under the editorship of Ulrich Schädler. In 2008, Bruce was one of the 10 invited speakers of the 12th Board Game Studies Colloquium, which was held in Lisbon. His paper, Toward the Classification of Non-Electronic Table Games, was published in the proceeding that followed in 2009. And in 2010, I had the pleasure to welcome a further lecture when we organized the same colloquium in Paris. Bruce's paper was entitled The Checkered Game of Life, Milton Bradley's First Game, 1860. It was published in the electronic proceedings I edited in 2012. In 2019, a new book, Tortured Cardboard, How Great Board Games Arise from Chaos, Survive by Chance, Impart Wisdom, and Game Immortality, was published by Philip Orbanes with the Games Gnome Permuted Press, that is, Bruce himself. The big game hunter has sowed parts of his large collection of American games in various institutions, like the Rockwell Museum in Corning, New York, the Strong Museum, Rochester, New York, at the Deutsches Spielemuseum in Chemnitz, Germany, and the Swiss Museum of Games, already mentioned, while some 6,000 of those games were acquired by the Centre National du Jeu in Boulogne-Billancourt. They are now housed by the Sorbonne Paris-Nord University at Villetaneuse, where I had the pleasure to see them stored. Ripley's Believe It or Not Centipede, his board games, include Ripley's Believe It or Not, Centipede, one of the first board games to be adapted from a video game, Change Horses, the Know-It-All edition of Trivial Pursuit, Untamed, Talat, Fuse, and Outback Crossing. His Underwood Cellars was just released in Essen in a German edition, Der Tote im Weinkeller from Cosmos. His series of mystery jigsaw puzzles has been very successful. He has about 6 games and puzzles still on the market in Europe and the US right now, with 2 more due out later this year, Mile High Murder and the Clue Mystery Jigsaw Puzzle both from University Games. Bruce, welcome.
I'd also like to welcome on the stage Monica Mateus. She's the head of the Cultural Institute of the Barcelona City Council. She's going to give Mr. Whitehill his prize for this amazing, absolutely amazing career. 1 second. Well done. It's all yours. You can leave that just there. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Thierry. Buenas tardes. Es un placer estar aquí. Por favor, discúlpame, pero solo hablo un poco español y lamento decirlo, no hablo catalán. Así que creo que es mejor que es hablar en inglés americano. Soy yo originario de Estados Unidos. And there may be people here who didn't understand what I just said, and I'm not sure either. Anyway, two recent speakers here, Irving Finkel and Thierry himself, both have a wealth of knowledge about very early game history. They travel the world, and Irving, for example, is one who will overturn rocks that he finds just to see if there are any games etched on the underside. I have an interest in that too, and in Turkey I was able to photograph these games, which luckily had already been turned right side up. These are games that go back 1,000 to 5,000 years. And my interest, well, as I said, I'm American. We're only 250 years old, not including the wonderful contributions of the Native Americans. So 250 years, I'm sure there are people here who know the names of relatives that are older than that. So my interest was in focusing on more modern things, more things that were invented by people more recently and put into boxes because they were good enough, they thought, to sell to a lot of people. So the commercial end of the industry, the manufacturing of games, and that's what got me started. Who invented these games? Who published them? And more importantly, what was going on in the culture at the time these games came out and came to be? But I'm getting ahead of myself. I first want to thank DAU Barcelona for this award that they have bestowed upon me. I am truly honored. And after working most of my adult life in games, it was difficult for me to decide what to talk about today, which of my lives I should focus on as a historian, as an inventor, an author, a player. So, one key word that ties all these lives together is curiosity. Curiosity about what makes a game good, curiosity about why people collect games that they don't even play, why one collectible game is considered more important than another one, and mostly what happened for that game to appear at the time that it did, what was going on in society. As an inventor, I'm curious about what you can do with a game idea that can make it interesting for other people to play. I'm curious, how many people here still play Monopoly? Oh, good, I see only one hand. two or three, okay. Why do so many people play Monopoly? It's the most popular game in the US. even though so many things are wrong with it. Don't get me started. And there are so many better games out there to play. Parker Brothers bought the game in 1933, but not from the inventor. You saw the picture of the inventor up here. Lizzie McGee in 1904. That's when Monopoly started. And these things make for a fascinating history that has gone into modern time. Games that are boxed and sold to as many people as possible. That's a whole nother story about Lizzie McGee. I was curious where Chinese checkers came from. Actually, I still am. I met at his home in Florida the one person who knew the story of Chinese checkers in the United States. He told me a little bit, but refused to say too much because he was saving it for his book. And then he died. And his wife told me there's no manuscript. So that story is one of the ones that at this point is still untold. Except that I did learn that Chinese checkers began in Germany around 1890 as Halma. And Halma had a variation called, I know you have Halma here too. Halma had a variation called Sternhalma or Star Halma, and that's where the six-pointed star of Chinese checkers came from. I'm curious why an American company published a game board based on a novel by a French cartoonist and writer who lived in England. The game was Trilby by Georges du Maurier, published by E.I. Horseman in 1895. That's for the benefit of people taking notes. Would you like a free game? I think so. Most people will. I'm curious why a coffee company, Lion Coffee, decided to give away free games with their product, coffee, around 1900, making it one of the first premiums in the game industry. They advertised, quote, "The children play them all day long and the grown folks in the evening." At that time, games were not just for children. And now, once again, they are not. Games reflect what's going on in the world. Take the Vanderbilt Cup race. The game came out in 1906. It was not just a race game, it was based on the actual Vanderbilt Cup race on Long Island, which, curiously enough, was canceled after a few years because too many of the spectators got killed. My curiosity about what was behind a game that came out in 1907 titled Teddy's Bear Hunt led me to the story about Teddy Roosevelt, who, while hunting bears, spared the life of a bear cub. This made all the headlines in the papers in America, and that was in 1902, and it wasn't until 5 years later that that story came out in a game, though not specifically mentioning Roosevelt, Teddy's Bear Hunt. I wondered what was behind the release of a Milton Bradley game around 1910 called Duck on the Rock. A beautifully illustrated game showing a duck that was dressed, not dressed as you dress a duck for cooking, dressed as in top hat and tails and so forth, standing on a rock. Anthropomorphism, drawing animals with human clothing and features, characteristics, was popular at that time. It turns out that Duck on the Rock was also popular at that time as a game that kids played outside. You would take a rock and, or a can and put it on top of a big boulder, and then you would throw rocks at it and try to knock it off. The box from Milton Bradley, as beautiful as it was, did not tell you anything about its history. You had to be curious enough to try to search it out. Another game reflective of its time Admiral Byrd's South Pole game, Little America. I know about Byrd and his expeditions to the South Pole and the naming of his base, Little America. What I didn't know was that he was promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral just before Christmas in 1929. The Parker Brothers game came out soon afterwards, in 1930, and helped you relive the adventures of this man at the South Pole. Jumping to the 1950s, I was curious how the career paths in a game such as Careers would not only change over time, but would be portrayed in different parts of the world. It's a good way to see cultural differences and changes in society. In the original Careers, you could have careers or a career in uranium prospecting, going to sea, or exploring the moon. Later, after we got to the moon, you could go into space. While the earliest American version of Careers allowed players to vacation first in Florida, then later on in Hawaii, Germans had their holiday in a mansion in the Swiss region of Tessin, and then Mallorca. Then Hawaii, and eventually the South Seas. The Dutch went to the Riviera, and when that became old hat, later versions took players to the South Seas, where I guess they met the Germans. Careers was published in Spain. It was published in Spain. Please disregard what it reads in your Catalan translation. It was published as Careers, Carreras, or El Juego de la Vida. Another game, Snakes and Ladders, is a game still played in Spain, but not much in the US anymore because I suspect Americans don't like snakes. My curiosity led me to discover that the game came from India, where the snake has a high status in Hindu mythology. But America changed the game to Chutes and Ladders, played by all children in the US, which allows you to, or allows the child to climb up to success or slide down and have to retrace his steps. I began this introduction by asking who plays Monopoly. Now I'm curious about a game that I see listed on the Spanish internet sites. Who still plays Ludo? Aha, the same one who plays Monopoly. Ludo is the British watered-down version of Parcheesi, the game everyone thinks comes from America, but it too originated in India as Parcheesi. Parcheesi, Parcheesi. It's much easier when you read it. Ludo is a game of pure luck using dice, and I don't know why anybody still plays it. If you play with a game such as that with your kids, at least get them Parcheesi. The German equivalent is Mensch ärgere dich nicht, a name that for me is awful to pronounce. I was curious how many children in Germany still play the game, and then I married a German, and that entitled me to an answer. In Germany, parents promote the game to all children, I won't say the name again, in order for their children to learn how to lose. Think about that. And on that note, I think I figured out which of my many lives I should talk about tonight. But I'm out of time. So whatever your lives are at this point, play fair, play as well as you can, and just remember the key to a full, rich, and interesting life is curiosity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great. Estem arribant al final. Abans que continuem, m'agradaria dir el títol personal, que abans he dit que no jugo gaire. Quan era adolescent jugava moltíssim als jocs de taula i coses de la vida, vas perdent el costum, etc. Un dels meus preferits, precisament, va ser el joc de Careers. I estic pensant seriosament en reprendre els jocs de taula un altre cop i també tinc la sensació que he pres un munt de coses amb totes les contribucions que hem sentit i vist avui aquesta nit. Doncs per acabar, crec que Oriol Comas, el director, fundador, creador de DAU Barcelona, vol dir-nos alguna cosa.
Gràcies. Després de 10 anys de DAU Barcelona, vull expressar el meu agraïment com a director del festival i penso que puc parlar en nom de tota la comunitat del joc. Vull expressar el meu agraïment a l'Ajuntament de Barcelona per haver creat, organitzat i finançat en gairebé la seva totalitat aquest festival, que, deixeu-m'ho dir, és un dels millors del món. La millor, ara quedaré malament, la millor manera d'agrair-ho és fer-ho directament a les persones de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona que han treballat molt a la vora del festival. Així, a més de Xavier Trias, que va obrir el festival, i l'alcaldessa de Barcelona, Ada Colau, vull agrair la bona feina d'Òscar Abril Escaso, Quico Álvarez, Carmen Andrés, Juanjo Arranz, Raimon Blasi, Esteve Caramés, Eva Carbó, Jaume Ciurana, gràcies Jaume, Marta Clari, Oriol Crespo, Núria Cuadrado, Miquel Àngel Delgado, Susana Descals, Diana Escobar, que trobem a faltar, Miquel Àngel Estefania, Francesc Fabregat, Sira Garcia, Donación Garmón, Inés Garriga, gràcies Inés, Valent Ginart, Olga Gómez, Carlos González, Cristian González, Daniel Granado, Joana Hurtado, Neus La Torre, Francesc Lepe, Anna Lingua, Mònica López, Lluïsa Manyosa, Núria Mármol, Jordi Martí, gràcies, moltes gràcies Jordi, Lucía Martín, Maria Masoliver, Mònica Mateos, Rosa Morlà, Montse Molet, Constant Müller, Helena Navarro, Laia Ortiz, Ollane Otegui, Valentí Oviedo, Oriol Requesens, Pilar Roca, Rocío Rubio, Carmina Rubís, Carla Sala, Joan Subirats, Joan, moltes gràcies, Berta Sureda, Guillem Talents, Emília Torres, Manel Torrent i Xus del Valle. Segur que me'n deixo molts. Of course, I can express my gratitude to hundreds of people who have built DAU Barcelona since 2012. If there were only 3 people, perhaps it might be Joaquim Dorca, Nadala Fernández and Tom Werneck. Thank you so much.
M'agradaria tornar a cridar a l'escenari la Mònica Mateus, la gerenta de l'Institut de Cultura de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona, per fer 4 paraules de cloenda, però abans d'això tenim una cosa totalment improvisada. L'Oriol no en sap absolutament res i és un DAU especial perquè es retira del festival. Aquest serà el DAU 10, serà l'últim festival DAU amb l'Oriol, diguem, com a director. Doncs això és de tots els organitzadors del festival DAU, tots els que han contribuït i què més puc dir, Oriol? Tu mereixes 10 vegades.
Bon vespre a tothom. Realment el que ha fet l'Oriol d'anomenar tots i totes les treballadors i treballadores com ho ha fet, creieu-me que és una tasca molt difícil perquè ha anomenat gent que fa molts anys que treballa a l'administració i que fa possible aquest festival. Per tant, en nom de tots i totes els treballadors municipals, moltes gràcies per aquest detall, Oriol, perquè de ben segur que a tots i a totes els hi farà moltíssima, moltíssima il·lusió. En primer lloc, vull felicitar molt sincerament a tots els guanyadors i guanyadores dels Premis DAU d'aquest any. Moltes felicitats a tots. M'agradaria començar destacant el fet que el Festival DAU Barcelona posa un dels seus focus precisament en la creativitat, en la tasca d'aquells que estan al darrere de la creació dels jocs, i aquesta és la raó, evidentment, dels premis que lliurem avui. El joc en si mateix és universal, molts de vosaltres ho heu dit en els vostres discursos, i per suposat el joc és cultura, això que no us quedi cap dubte d'aquesta gran frase. El joc té un gran poder d'adoptar multituds formes, i és a través del joc que desenvolupem habilitats i ens socialitzem. El joc també pot arribar a ser terapèutic, però també sinònim de diversió i d'espais de lleure compartits. El Festival DAU és això, un univers amb el joc com a protagonista on conflueixen tots aquests factors. Durant un intens cap de setmana, aquest cap de setmana, la Fabra i Coats i diferents espais de Sant Andreu es converteixen en un immens taulell de joc, un punt de trobada de creadors i creadores, de jugadors i jugadores, d'experts i d'iniciats i de petits i grans. Aquesta, de fet, és la màgia del Festival DAU. Voldria agrair en aquest sentit la implicació de les 48 editorials, 8 clubs de jocs històrics i 35 entitats de tot tipus que prenen part a l'edició d'enguany. Gràcies per ser-hi i moltes gràcies per fer-ho possible. El joc és un moment de trobada. Ens asseu al voltant d'un taulell en les mateixes condicions. Ens fa iguals i això és una característica vital a la vida. És important, doncs, jugar i a través també del joc transformar. Aprofitar el que aquesta disciplina ens aporta per construir millor tot el que ens proposem com a societat. Amb aquesta entrega de premis donem el tret de sortida de la 10ª edició del DAU Festival a Barcelona. Una edició que torna a la presencialitat, afortunadament, i que per una persona que tots coneixeu, l'Oriol, és sens dubte una de les més especials. Perquè dic jo que si els futbolistes el que fan és penjar les botes, s'entén que quan els amants del joc es retiren, entre cometes, què fan? Pengen el dau o què? I és que després de 10 anys, al capdavant d'aquesta bogeria... Collons. El pare i la mare del festival, l'Oriol, se'n jubila. M'agradaria agrair-li en nom de la ciutat tota la feinada, la passió i l'energia que ha posat i ha invertit en el DAU. Cal reconèixer que la idea que va tenir ara ja fa uns quants anys l'ha sabut posar a la pràctica i ens ha demostrat a tothom que un festival dedicat al joc no només és possible, sinó necessari. Moltes gràcies, Oriol.
Doncs ja està. Us recordaré que per la raó que tots coneixem rebreu instruccions de la gent del teatre per sortir, diguem, en grups reduïts del teatre. Ja sabem per què. Moltes gràcies per haver vingut.